Hey guys, welcome to the Cutting Room. This YouTube channel is about independent horror movies, the good, the bad, and the ones that deserve way more attention than they get. My name's Nick. I've been making independent horror movies, or independent movies in general, for the past 10 years. So I'm here to talk about these films respectfully and honestly, and to show you the underrated ones that are really hidden away and you don't really see any, on mainstream stuff. Some of these films are rough and some are incredible, and a lot of them are worth your time if you're into indie horror and finding new movies you might have missed. So let's get into it. Today we're talking about a movie that came out in 2020. It's called Homecoming Massacre by, where is it? By Directed by Kenny White, and the production studio is White Hair Productions. They have a couple of things on their website. They have more things than just this, but I found this looking for things to review, and I decided to review it. But here's the synopsis. On Jonathan's 7th birthday, he witnessed a violent act towards his mother that triggered a mental collapse. He was found days later by his aunt, Mary. The boy was dressed like a clown, sitting alone in his home with the corpses of his mother and her lover. Yikes. Mary struggled with substance abuse over the following decade, but now that she has been able to maintain a life of sobriety, she has found herself forgiven by her husband and teenage children. Mary has decided to pass this forgiveness on to her nephew, Jonathan. After 10 years in a mental facility, Jonathan is coming home to join the only family he has left. Mary hopes he can live a normal life, but on the eve of his 17th birthday, things begin to get wicked as Jonathan's imaginary friend decides to come out and play. So, the movie starts out with Jonathan, his 7th birthday. He's got friends over. His mom's there and everybody else is there. There's this clown, this half-ass clown, which I think is also the mom's boyfriend at the time, or just some guy who's drunk and doing tricks and things like that. It's very half-assed or whatever. Um, it's a flashback scene. It's got the grainy stuff on it and everything, and they try to make it as flashbacky as possible. And so, he's playing with his friends. He's having a good time. He's opening his presents, and his cake's on the kitchen table and everything. The leftover cake, anyways. He's in his room. He's doing his stuff, and his mom's drunken boyfriend comes over, I guess, and is mad at her, and stuff. And they're on the couch, and he's trying to have sex with her, and she's not having it, and so he begins to force himself on her. And the kid hears this, and puts on some pseudo clown makeup, gets a knife from his cake, and proceeds to stab the boyfriend, and also stab his mom as well too. And it's as gruesome as an indie horror movie it can be. Then we fast forward, 10 years in the future, and the kid is getting picked up by his aunt at this facility. I will say the actor acting is grown-up Jonathan is really good. He's playing the very meek, quiet, scared Jonathan very well. And also we have the aunt, Mary, who's played by, I have no idea. Let's see. It's played by, I've seen her before in a lot of indie stuff. She's very good. Cindy Maples. Yeah, she's in a lot of indie horror stuff that you see. I've seen over the years and things like that, and she's very good. She seems to always play the mother character. She's very good at that. Does a really good job. So her and her husband are picking up Jonathan, and they're two teenage kids. Are very hesitant because they're pretty much bringing home their cousin who's a murderer, who's just been let go from this facility. So yeah, the husband's apprehensive. The kid doesn't talk very much on the drive back, and they're just trying to get him comfortable, get him used to normal life and stuff like that. So they bring him home and put him in their little guest room and everything. and the older brother takes him outside to show them around the house and the property and everything, and show them where their grandfather's stuff was. Or apparently it's a pile of crap, and it's now like a shed with a pool table in it or something. And the older brother proceeds to taunt Jonathan, and kind of regrets that because Jonathan just full on chokes him with all of his strength, all of his like serial killer strength, and really conveys not to be fucked with by him anymore. And he gets the message very well. So after that, the younger sister takes him downtown and is trying to connect with him in the car. Like, what music do you like? What would you like to eat? This is going on. And so they park downtown where their dad's auto shop is. And Jonathan goes off, and the daughter goes. They go their separate ways. The daughter meets up with her boyfriend, goes and talks to him for a bit, while Jonathan's roaming around and like figuring out what to do and stuff. And we get a scene also that happens previously. I kind of forgot about this, where the sibling's friend is over right before Jonathan comes back, and he's telling the story about what he heard over the years about what happened with their cousin. And apparently, the kid brutally killed both parents, rearranged their organs in some fashion or another, and proceeded to eat his cake the entire time he was left in that house for, apparently, I think they said like a week. So yeah, that's the story. That's the urban legend story we get from one of the kid's friends. So yeah, this proceeds to they eventually come home and have a meal with everybody. We get one kill from the mechanic at the dad's shop gets killed, and kind of reveals who the killer is and what's going on, and it's not really hard to figure that out. I will say this: they don't do the whole whodunit thing. Like, who killed him, what's happening, why he's doing this. Like, he's finally out, he's around family again, and he's kind of just always crazy, I guess. Jonathan is just nuts. No way to cure him, even though he's been in the facility for 10 years. He's just been playing coy until he gets out, and now he's just kind of like, doing his own thing. I'm not going to try to ruin the rest of the movie, but I will say this: he does go on a killing spree. He does kill a lot of the other people, the family, as they have friends over and the boyfriends over and things like that. I will say this: the audio, like technically speaking, the good stuff. The audio's great. Music's pretty good. There's a nice balance and everything. There's no crazy audio issues with this, which is a big thing with indie film and indie horror film in general. Usually the audio is like kind of crap. Everything's pretty audible. You can hear what they're saying. There's not any distortion or anything like that. So kudos to the filmmakers for that. Also kudos to them for the post-production stuff with the editing. The editing is solid. There are a lot of like cuts between. I think there's a scene where the sister has a boyfriend over and they're having sex in her room, and then the brother, his friend, and the girl they picked up are like at the pool table, and the girl and the brother are having sex in the pool table area outside, and they're doing like weird like back and forth thing as Jonathan is inside the house stalking people and offing them slowly. So there's that, and they've done a lot of really solid editing, cuts between scenes and stuff. So I will say that they actually put an effort to make it solid, make it watchable, make sure the cuts didn't linger, there weren't odd things going on. Yeah, and it is. They put a lot of effort into that, which I really appreciate. It's very rewatchable. I've watched it 2 or 3 times to do this review, and it's still enjoyable. Music is pretty generic, but like I can't fault them for that. I mean, as an indie movie, you can't really, sometimes you can't get rights to things, and things cost money and stuff. So I understand that. That's fine. I will say this. I'll nitpick a couple of things, but it's not really anything that's a detriment to the experience of watching the movie. They do a day for night effect that's kind of blatant, but once again, budgets constraints. You can't really film at night. It kind of sucks. I understand that. The kills aren't as bloody or as gory as I'd want it to be, but again, they at least convey the idea of like this person is dead. You've killed them, so there's that. I will say the best kill that I liked a lot was the killing in the mechanic shop. That one was a nice little like, one where you kind of understood what was happening. Everything kind of like, you know, uh, you're really getting to know the character and what you're really getting to know the character Jonathan and what's happening and stuff. So that's really good. I will say that. One other thing to kind of give them positive on the lighting whenever they're lighting the stuff for the inside of the house or when Jonathan's killing people or whatever, they do a lot of like cool lighting effects and stuff. So this way they put a lot of effort into that, so you kind of like get what's going on and things. Um, it was a solid. It's a solid movie, a solid watch. Like I said, I watched it 2 or 3 times, so it's definitely rewatchable. It's a fun movie. But let's go ahead and rank it since that's what I do here. So here's my ranking system. I rank these. I rank these using indie horror legends from S to F. Roger Corman at the top because he's the indie godfather. He's been launching careers and everything, and he was making movies till he passed away last year. And underneath him is John Carpenter. Because he started off as indie and made absolute classics on shoestring budgets. And then right underneath him is Charles Band, because he's kept the indie scene alive through the 80s and 90s and made a lot of really fun things with Full Moon Pictures. Right underneath him is Lloyd Kaufman. He's in the middle because he's the pure indie spirit, even if he's more shock and chaos than quality. And then we have Jim Wynorski below him, since he's basically all about the cheap thrills and topless scenes over substance. And then right at the bottom, at F, we have Rob Zombie because I think he's a shit filmmaker and director. But let's see, I gave this one the John Carpenter ranking because it did have the pure indie spirit. You did shoot this. Like I said, you shot this as well as you could, and it showed. The editing is great, the audio is great, the story is really good and solid. There's very little fat on this, editing-wise and anything else. You know, it's definitely like I said, it's definitely a fun watch. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad it's in my collection. I would definitely say check it out. It is on Tubi. They do have it for purchase as well. I will be putting links in the description below. So you guys can hopefully, have more indie films in your library and help these indie filmmakers out, make a little money, and maybe make some more fun things, later on. But until next time, I'll see you.